So we're back out here today with the Dream Rifle build. So far I've put 180 rounds through this thing, but you guys might notice some new parts. We've got the Eotech on the Unity riser to get that 2.26 inch height over bore, and we got the Eotech Magnifier on the Unity flip to center mount. I've never really run a gun with my optics mounted so high before, but it seems to be what everybody loves these days, so we're gonna see if we like it. Let's hope this thing runs today. Oh, this thing shoots so nice. Welcome back to Sawtooth Tactical and another episode of the Dream Rifle build series. I don't know if you can tell, but this rifle is almost done. In fact, it is very close. There is only really one more thing I need for it, which we'll talk about at the very end of the video. But you might notice the optic setup has changed dramatically, and dramatically for the better. So if this looks like something you're interested in seeing, if you've been following this build series so far, make sure you're subscribed, make sure you hit that notification bell so you don't miss any future episodes. And if you haven't seen the rest of the build series, make sure you go back and watch. You can see where we went from the stripped ADM lower receiver to what we've got here in front of you now. This has been my favorite build series that we've done so far, and this rifle is sweet. For those that have been following along, you probably remember in the last couple episodes, I added the mod light setup, Surefire tail cap, arrow socket inline mount, and the mod button. And then we had it out to the range and had some reliability issues, which I thought I had gotten totally taken care of. Turns out I was wrong, so we'll talk about that toward the end of the video as well. But I've got it running fine now. Just had buffer and spring issues with every build. But anyway, I gotta say, I'm not really super impressed with the Geissele Super 42 buffer system. I've used it now in 2 builds. It's more expensive than a regular buffer system, and it hasn't worked reliably in either one, and I've had to switch both of them out. So I've spent all this money on Geissele braided springs, and the other problem with that is with their Super 42 system, the buffer itself is a smaller diameter to fit inside that braided spring, and so you can't just switch a spring or a buffer. You have to use the Geissele parts that go together, and as far as I can tell, they don't just sell an H1 buffer. I had the Super 42 H2 in here. I want to try just the H1, but I'm going to have to get in contact with Geissele and see if they'll sell me just the buffer, because all I can find online at the online retailers are buffer and spring combos. Well, now I've got 2 Super 42 springs that I don't really have any use for, and so I don't want to buy another buffer and spring combo. So probably have to get a hold of Geissele tomorrow and see what we can do there. But that's not really the point of this video. In this video, we have changed up the optics setup on this gun dramatically. So we already had the OD green Eotech sitting on top of it, and I am very happy with the Eotech. But you can see we've added some things here. Obviously, I had no issues shooting with the optic on a riser. I'm gonna try out this Eotech Magnifier now, see what kind of difference that makes a little farther back. With this build being a 14.5 inch pin and weld, that is kind of a longer rifle build. I know it's not quite as long as like a 16 inch, although with the muzzle device pinned and welded, that does bring it to that 16 inch length. But my point being that with a longer rifle length build, I wanted some kind of magnified optic. Now I could have gone the LPVO offset red dot setup like I did on my 16-inch rifle. But again, with a rifle built with these kind of high quality parts and stuff, I would have wanted to get a more expensive high quality LPVO. And honestly, most of the shooting I do isn't done out past, 300-400 yards. Although I do have that capability where I live, most of the shooting I do is within 100, 150, less than 200 yards usually. And so for most of the shooting that I like to do, a red dot, or in this case a holographic, is perfect. But I still wanted to have the capability of some magnification for positive identification at greater distances, and just to be able to take, more precise shots at those greater distances when I wanted to engage at distances out past 100 yards or more. And I've also just always wanted an Eotech. And the fact that I found one in green, I went with that. But then I had to get a magnifier. Now, magnifiers are one of those things that they're never gonna be great. They're perfectly fine. Like on this one, I've got the SIG Romeo 5 with the Juliet 3 micro magnifier. And I've been perfectly happy with it. It's got the whole flip to the side deal, which is kind of your standard magnifier mount. But I wanted to try the 2.26-inch optical center height on this build. That seems to be the really popular thing these days. And, more heads up kind of shooting makes a lot of sense rather than having to get your face right down on the rifle to get a sight picture. So that meant that the plan was always to put the Eotech on a riser and then to get the, flip to center mount from Unity Tactical for the magnifier itself, get that same 2.26-inch center optical height with both the holographic and the magnifier that way. And it kind of makes for just a more compact package when you flip the magnifier out of the way. You don't have something hanging off the side of your gun, bringing off the balance of it. I already have a light hanging off that side. Not that that's really ever felt like it affected me all that much, but I just really like this system. It looks clean and it's very attractive. The aesthetic is nice. And I just wanted that higher optic height for, faster heads up kind of shooting. And so that's what we went with. Now, if you are going to do something like this, Eotech has different models. They have the XPS models, the EXPS models. The ones with the QD system sit at a lower 1/3 co-witness height, and they use a different riser than the XPS models without the QD attachment system. These ones you actually have to use a taller riser to get to that same height that your magnifier will be at with the flip to center mount from Unity. And so if you are looking to do this kind of optic setup, that is something that you have to take into consideration. Make sure that you do get the correct riser for whichever Eotech model that you are running. Now, I think I told you guys last week that I ordered a G43 in tan. Well, they sent me something totally different. This is not tan. This is not a G43. It's a G33, I believe. And it's black. But you know what? I'm perfectly happy with it. This thing, the whole rifle is black and green. So after I ordered the tan one, I was kind of wondering if that was going to go well with the aesthetic of the build anyway. So when it showed up being black instead of tan, I was kind of okay with that. Plus, the G33 here, it actually has a better eye relief, eye box than the 43 anyway, which is kind of nice. I feel like I could see through it pretty easily. The eye box isn't terrible, although with any magnifier, it's not going to be great. That's just kind of the nature of the beast. But that's also one of the benefits of using the holographic magnifier setup versus an LPVO. An LPVO, even on 1X, you have like scope shadow if you don't get your eye right in the right spot. Whereas with a setup like this, you get your magnifier out of the way, and it's just like running your regular Eotech holographic or like a red dot or something if you wanted to go with aim point or something like that. And so that's kind of the benefit to the holographic plus magnifier combo there. Now, a lot of people will mount these right in next to each other, but you don't have to do that. It works perfectly fine this way, and in fact, this worked best for me. I like mounting my red dots, my holographics, as far forward on my upper receiver as possible, which you actually even get it a little more farther forward with the Unity riser here. But then you need to set up your magnifier where it's going to work with your eyes for the correct eye relief and where I like to keep my stock setup. On this one, in order to run my backup iron sight underneath it, the magnifier is actually a little too far forward and I have to shorten up my stock if I'm going to use the magnifier. Now I can fix that. I could take off the backup iron sight, which is what I did on this. The backup iron does not fit underneath this when this is down. Is what it is. I'm not really too concerned about my Eotech going down. These things are built like tanks. I've had backup iron sights on a lot of guns and I've never had to use them. I keep them zeroed just in case, but I mean, honestly, am I really going to have to use iron sights with modern optic technology? Probably not. So not a huge loss as far as I'm concerned. Now, if you are considering doing a setup like this, be prepared to open up your wallet. It's not cheap. Even though this is one of the more affordable Eotech models that there is, by the time you factor in the mounts and the magnifier, you're at a lot of money. Just this flip to center magnifier itself for the magnifier is like 260 bucks. Another $100 for this optics riser. So, and that's not even including the optics. That's just the mount and the riser. So be prepared to pay for that. Same kind of thing if you're going to go with like a mod light setup like this. If you really want to use truly mid-tier, high-tier, whatever parts, it's going to cost you. But generally, when it comes to guns and gun parts, you do get what you pay for. I'm infinitely happier with this setup than I am with this setup, which is a red dot magnifier combo as well. And again, nothing wrong with this setup, but this does just work better and it looks better. Let's face it, you know, Eotech are battle-proven optics, and that's one of the reasons why I'm not too concerned with not having my backup iron sights anymore. With an Eotech, you're probably not going to ever need them. Still need to take the iron sight off the front, obviously. I kind of just realized that. With the riser, you can't co-witness your irons anyway. So, just something to take into consideration. If you are one of those die-hard backup iron sights people, if you put your optics this high, you're going to have to figure out some way to make that work with your iron sights. And to me, just not really worth it. I do still need to get a sling for this. I'm looking at the Blue Force Gear Vickers sling, I think is my top choice right now. And I know I've asked this in multiple past build series videos, but if you have a better recommendation, let me know down in the comments. And the last thing I want to talk about is the last week's video on this rifle. I had thought that I'd gotten it running perfectly reliably. Apparently I was wrong. I took it out yesterday thinking that my gun worked great. Ran through the first mag without any issues. Second mag, it was like a bolt action again. And I'm not sure why, because I was running the exact same ammo in both magazines. It was the first time that I had ordered the AAC 55 grain 5.56 NATO, which was a fantastic deal, and so I ordered a bunch of it. I thought maybe that could be part of the issue, but I don't think so, because it ran the first magazine perfectly fine. I actually came back from the range very disappointed that my rifle was having reliability issues again. So I got home and I was like, you know what, screw this. I'm going to throw a different buffer and spring in it and see what happens. I threw a lighter buffer and spring in it, went back out there, mag dumped another magazine, no issues. So that's definitely what the problem is. Was again the Super 42 H2 setup, which is what Geissele recommends for a 14.5-inch barrel. Doesn't seem to be reliable with a 14.5-inch barrel. I do think I'm going to contact Geissele this week, and I'm not one of those kind of people that contact gun manufacturers. When I bought this 1911, it didn't run at all. I didn't get a hold of Springfield, I fixed it myself. That's what I do. And I have technically fixed this myself. But I've also spent a bunch of money now on 2 Geissele Super 42 systems for my last 2 builds, the 300 Blackout and this one, and neither one of them have worked. And that's kind of disappointing. I'm hoping maybe Geissele will send me out an H1 to try with their Super 42 spring. Maybe that'll make a difference. I do want to keep this rifle as soft shooting as I can, which it really is. With the mid-length gas system, the 14.5-inch barrel, this thing shoots like a dream, and I want to keep it that way. So I don't want to have it too lightly buffered and sprung to where I end up with more recoil than is necessary. But at the same time, if it's not reliable, then there's no point in any of this. So I'm going to do whatever it is that I got to do. Let me know what you guys think down in the comments of the optic setup, the light setup, the buffer and spring setup. Let me know what your favorite optic setup is on your dream rifle. And I will answer every single comment. And I love talking to you guys down in the comment section. Also, please subscribe, hit that thumbs up button, share this video with anyone that you think might be interested in building out custom rifles. And from Sawtooth Tactical, stay strapped or get clapped.